I found her notebook, Mom. Caleb whispered, his hands trembling as he held it out. Every lie, every excuse, it's all written down. She even planned the next fake emergency. That was the moment June Holloway knew everything was real. The betrayal, the manipulation, the quiet cruelty, hidden behind perfect smiles. The woman her son loved had turned their family into her personal bank account. But June wasn't the kind of mother who sat quietly while her child was destroyed. That night, she made a decision that would change both their lives forever. Because sometimes uncovering the truth doesn't just break hearts, it saves them. Would you have had the courage to do what June did? Stay with me, because what happened next will leave you breathless. It started on an ordinary Thursday afternoon at Pinecrest Market, the kind of grocery store where everyone knows everyone by name. But that day, something extraordinary shattered the quiet routine of June Holloway's life. June, a 67-year-old widow, living on a modest pension in Riverton, Colorado, was at the checkout counter, counting out a few crumpled bills for a simple vanilla cake. The cashier, a gray-haired man with kind eyes named Benji Rhodes, suddenly froze when he saw her name on the receipt. His hands trembled slightly as he whispered, "Mrs. Holloway, are you Caleb Porter's mother?" Startled, June nodded. Benji leaned forward, his voice barely audible. "You deserve to know, ma'am. The Monroe family, your son's in-laws, they've been lying to him. They come in here every week spending hundreds of dollars on wine, imported meats, luxury stuff, while telling your son they can't afford rent." June blinked, unsure she'd heard right. "That can't be true," she murmured. But Benji's face was filled with quiet regret. "I wish it weren't." Her heart thudded in her chest as she stumbled out of the store, the cake box shaking in her hands. Maybe it was a misunderstanding, she told herself. Maybe the man was confusing them with someone else. But as she reached the parking lot, her curiosity overwhelmed her. Instead of going to her son's car where Caleb was waiting, she slipped behind a row of trash dumpsters, her pulse hammering in her ears. From there, she could see the store's main doors perfectly. And within minutes, she spotted Frank Monroe, her daughter-in-law Tessa's father, walking out with several sleek black shopping bags stamped with Aurelia & Co., a luxury boutique she'd only ever seen in magazines. Frank moved leisurely, placing the bags into the trunk of a gleaming silver SUV, definitely not the dented sedan he'd always complained about. He pulled out his phone, laughing easily as he spoke to someone, his posture relaxed and confident. June's throat tightened. Tessa had told her countless times that her parents were struggling, that they barely had money for groceries, that Frank's health bills were piling up, that they sometimes went hungry. Caleb, her sweet, hard-working boy, had always sent money without question. And when he didn't have enough, June herself had chipped in. "Now watch!" The sound of voices nearby snapped her out of her thoughts. Two older women were chatting as they loaded groceries into their cars. "Did you see Tess at the Emma?" June froze. The other woman chuckled softly. "Hard to believe she tells everyone they're broke. My neighbor said the Monroes throw parties every month, catered food, expensive wine, the works." The words stung like glass. June's knees felt weak. All those nights she'd lain awake worrying about that family, skipping her medication to save money for them. It had all been a lie. Still, she told herself she needed to be sure. She couldn't accuse anyone without proof. So she waited. When Frank came back out of the store, his eyes swept the parking lot, cautious, almost calculating. That single glance told her more than words ever could. He was hiding something. Later that day, Caleb picked her up for lunch at Tessa's family home. He seemed cheerful, unaware of the storm gathering beside him. "You okay, Mom? You look pale." "I'm fine," June lied. "Just a little tired." The Monroe's house stood in the upscale Willow Park neighborhood, with manicured lawns and flower beds that bloomed like magazine spreads. For a family that constantly complained of financial hardship, their home looked immaculate. The moment Tessa opened the door, June's suspicions deepened. Her daughter-in-law was dressed in a silky emerald dress. Her hair perfectly highlighted, her makeup flawless. "June, what a lovely surprise," Tessa exclaimed, embracing her. The scent of expensive perfume filled the air. June forced a smile. Inside, the living room had changed completely since her last visit. New leather furniture, glass coffee tables, modern decor. that screamed luxury. A flat-screen TV, the size of a wall, dominated the room. In the kitchen, June glimpsed countertops filled with fine ingredients, imported cheeses, fresh herbs, and bottles of wine worth more than her monthly groceries. She tried to speak casually. "You've redecorated. It's beautiful." "Oh," Tessa said lightly, "we just found some great deals." That same excuse again. Deals, gifts, clearance sales. Too many coincidences for one family. As they sat down to lunch, June observed everything: the expensive crystal glasses, the polished silverware, the effortless abundance. Frank poured a ruby red wine into her glass. "A friend of mine got this for me at a discount," he said with a grin. June nodded politely, but her thoughts churned. She was surrounded by lies wrapped in elegance. Her son smiled across the table, laughing at one of Tessa's jokes, completely blind to the deception. Halfway through lunch, June's phone buzzed in her purse, a text from an unknown number. Her stomach tightened as she opened it. It was a photo of a grocery receipt totaling $423.78, dated 2 days ago. The list included imported steak, French champagne, and truffle oil. The name on the receipt read Frank Monroe. Underneath, Benji Rhodes had written, "I thought you should see this. The truth deserves a witness." June's heart nearly stopped. She glanced at Frank across the table, smiling, pouring wine, as if nothing were wrong. Her hands trembled as she slid the phone back into her purse. The evidence was right there, and yet her son sat inches away, oblivious. She excused herself to the bathroom, splashing cold water on her face. In the mirror, she saw not just a weary mother, but a woman standing on the edge of truth and betrayal. When she returned, Caleb looked up from his meal. "You okay, Mom?" "Just a little dizzy," she said softly. But inside, her resolve hardened. By the end of that afternoon, June knew she couldn't ignore it anymore. Someone had to stop this deception. Someone had to protect her son before his kindness was destroyed completely, and that someone was going to be her. That night, June Holloway couldn't sleep. The image of that $423 receipt burned in her mind like a secret she couldn't contain. She kept seeing Frank Monroe's smug smile, the glint of that silver SUV, and her son Caleb's face so trusting, so unaware. By morning, she'd made up her mind. If she wanted to protect her son, she needed proof so strong that even Tessa couldn't twist it into another story. Over the next few days, June began her quiet investigation. She returned to Pinecrest Market, pretending to shop, and spoke to Benji Rhodes, the cashier who had warned her. "Are you sure about what you told me?" she asked. Benji nodded solemnly. "Mrs. Holloway, I've seen it with my own eyes. They come in every week, sometimes twice. Champagne, imported cheese, even caviar. They pay in cash, and it's always either Tessa or her father." He hesitated before adding, "Yesterday they spent $600. I saved the receipt. You might need this." June felt her stomach tighten as she looked at the photo he handed her. The date on it matched the day Tessa had called Caleb crying for emergency rent money. Her heart broke a little more. That evening, when Caleb came by her apartment, he looked exhausted. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. "Tessa's worried about her dad," he said quietly. "He needs minor surgery. They're short $200, so I picked up extra shifts." June's teacup rattled against the saucer. She'd expected another lie, but hearing it in her son's voice, full of compassion, made it hurt worse. "Caleb," she said carefully, "can I show you something?" He frowned. "Sure, Mom." June pulled out her phone and showed him the receipts. First 1, then 2, then 3. All luxury purchases, all made within days of Tessa's desperate pleas for help. Caleb's brow furrowed. "Where did you get these? From the grocery store?" "The cashier recognized me. He said they come in every week." He shook his head, forcing a laugh that didn't sound real. "That doesn't make sense. Maybe it's a mistake. Maybe they're using someone else's card." "Your name's not on them, Caleb," she said softly. "Frank's is." The silence that followed was unbearable. He stared at the photos for a long time, his jaw tightening. "Mom, I know you mean well, But Tessa's family isn't like that. They wouldn't lie. June sighed. Sweetheart, love can make us blind to the people who use us. He stood up, pacing. You're wrong. Tessa isn't using me. She's just trying to help her family. But even as he said it, his voice cracked. That night, after Caleb left, June prayed. For strength, for clarity, for her son to see the truth before it destroyed him completely. The next morning, her phone buzzed a message from an unknown number. It was Dorothy Pike, one of the women she'd overheard gossiping at the market. Mrs. Holloway, I think you should know. The Monroes threw a big party last night. Catered food, live music, imported wine. My neighbor said it looked like a wedding. June felt her heart stop. A party. When they claimed they couldn't afford rent, Dorothy sent a photo. The Monroe house lit up like a Christmas tree. Luxury cars lined the street. People in cocktail attire clinked glasses on the porch. That was the breaking point. 2 nights later, Caleb called again, sounding drained. Mom, I don't know what to do. Tessa just asked for another $1,000. Says her dad's surgery got delayed, and now they need to pay in cash. June took a deep breath. Come over. I have something to show you. When he arrived, she spread everything on the table, receipts, screenshots, photos from Dorothy, messages from Benji. Caleb stared at the evidence. His hands trembled slightly. No? There has to be an explanation, then find it. June said, meeting his eyes. Ask her. He swallowed hard. I will. That night, Caleb drove home with a storm brewing inside him. He waited until Tessa was asleep before opening the closet, something he'd never done before. Inside were dozens of glossy shopping bags, Aurelia & Co., Harper, Luxe, Maison, Amour. All brands he'd never seen in their house. The price tags were still attached. He checked her dresser drawers next and found jewelry still in velvet boxes untouched. But it was the notebook that truly shattered him, pages and pages of handwritten notes. Each page listed dates, excuses, and dollar amounts. Dad's medical bills, ask $500. Car repair, $300. Dentist for mom, $1 $200. Next to each, Tessa had written, he believed me in neat cursive. When Caleb confronted her the next morning, she laughed nervously. That's just budgeting notes, you're reading too much into it. He showed her the receipts. What about these? The car, the parties, the lies? Her expression darkened. Who told you that, your mother? She's been poisoning you against me since day one. Answer me, he shouted, slamming the notebook onto the counter. Have you been lying to me this entire time? The mask finally cracked. Tessa's tone shifted from sweet to venomous. Fine, yes. So what, my parents needed help, and you could afford it. What's wrong with that? You think your mom's some kind of saint? She's jealous because we have what she doesn't. Caleb felt his heart splinter. You used me, Tessa. You used all of us. Tessa sneered. You were easy, Caleb. You always wanted to be the hero. At that moment, Frank Monroe walked in, drawn by the noise. Son, calm down, he said smoothly, pretending nothing was wrong. Let's talk about this man to man. But Caleb had already pieced it all together. The fake medical bills, the extra work shifts, the staged pity calls. He turned to Frank. How long have you been taking my money? Frank sighed. Since the beginning. We knew you'd take care of Tessa. It's not personal, son, it's survival. Survival, Caleb's voice shook with rage. You call this survival? You call stealing from me a strategy? Tessa crossed her arms. You'll get over it. You always do. But for once, Caleb didn't back down. He grabbed the notebook, the receipts, and walked out without another word. Hours later, he showed up at June's apartment, his face pale, his eyes hollow. You were right, Mom, he whispered. All of it. June hugged him tightly as he broke down in her arms. The truth had finally come out, but at a cost neither of them had imagined. I told her it's over, Caleb said quietly. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. I can't live with someone who builds a marriage on lies. June didn't speak. She just held him until his trembling stopped. For the first time in years, her son saw her not just as his mother, but as the woman who had saved him from losing everything. Outside, the snow had begun to fall softly over Riverton, covering the streets in white. But inside that small apartment, a storm had already passed. and a new beginning was waiting on the horizon. Winter melted slowly into spring in Riverton, Colorado. But for June, Holloway and her son, Caleb Porter, the cold seemed to linger longer than usual. The betrayal had left a wound that didn't heal overnight. Tessa Monroe was gone now, along with the lies, manipulation, and quiet destruction she'd brought into their lives. Yet even after the papers were filed and the house stood empty, Caleb carried the weight of what he'd lost. At first, the silence in his apartment was unbearable. Every corner reminded him of the woman he thought he'd known. Every drawer still carried a trace of her perfume. He tried to work more to fill the hours, but grief has a way of finding you in the quiet moments, especially when the betrayal came from someone you once loved with your whole heart. June visited him often. She'd bring food, help him clean, or just sit with him while the air between them spoke the words they couldn't. "You did the right thing, Caleb," she told him one evening as they shared a quiet dinner. "Walking away from people who take advantage of your kindness isn't cruel, it's survival. It's how you protect the good parts of yourself." Caleb nodded, though his eyes still carried the exhaustion of a man who had rebuilt himself from ashes. "I just don't understand how someone could fake everything," he murmured. The smiles, the words, even the tears. June reached across the table and took his hand. "Because not everyone loves the way you do. Some people see compassion as weakness, when in truth, it's the strongest thing a human being can have." Those words stayed with him. Over time, Caleb began to heal. He focused on his career, met new people, and slowly rediscovered laughter. The pain didn't vanish, it transformed into something else: awareness. He learned that kindness should never come at the expense of self-respect. Months passed. Life had found its rhythm again. One morning, while buying coffee at a small downtown cafe, Caleb met Layla Bennett, a project manager from a nearby firm. She was warm, grounded, and refreshingly direct, the kind of person who looked you in the eyes and meant what she said. Their friendship grew naturally, without the pressure of pretending. She never asked for money, never exaggerated her struggles. She just showed up as herself, and that was enough. The first time Layla met June, she brought a bouquet of wildflowers and 2 pies, 1 apple, 1 peach. "I wasn't sure which you liked better," she said shyly. June smiled, touched. "Both are perfect, dear. Anyone who brings pie is already family in my book." Over dinner that night, June watched the way her son looked at Layla. It wasn't the dazzled, blinded by love expression she'd seen before. This time, it was something deeper, steady, cautious, real. She could tell he'd learned the difference between infatuation and genuine connection. Within a year, Caleb and Layla married in a small ceremony overlooking the foothills. It wasn't a grand affair, just a few close friends, a local pastor, and June, who cried softly through the vows. "It's not the size of the wedding," Layla told her afterward. "It's the size of the heart you build your life on." For June, those words meant everything. Their life together flourished in ways that felt honest. Caleb and Layla worked hard, saved money, and built something stable. There were no secrets, no manipulations, just love, trust, and respect. And for the first time in years, June felt peace. 6 months after the wedding, Layla visited June with glowing eyes and a small envelope. "We wanted you to be the first to know," she said, placing it gently on the table. Inside was a sonogram picture. June covered her mouth, tears spilling instantly. "Oh my goodness," she whispered. "You're going to be parents." Caleb smiled, wrapping an arm around his wife. "And you're going to be a grandmother, Mom." It was one of those moments that felt like a full circle, the end of a storm and the beginning of sunlight. The pain, the betrayal, the sleepless nights, all of it had led them here to a place of honesty and love that couldn't have existed without the hard lessons they'd learned. When the baby arrived, a little boy with bright blue eyes and a dimpled grin, they named him Ben, after Benji Rhodes, the kind cashier who had once dared to speak the truth. They invited Benji and his wife Kara to dinner one weekend, wanting to thank them. Benji chuckled when he saw the baby. "You really named him after me." June smiled warmly. "You helped save our family. You told me the truth when it wasn't easy." That kind of courage deserves to be remembered. He grew quiet, eyes glistening. Most people don't want to hear the truth, Mrs. Holloway. But you listened, you acted. That's something special. June nodded. Sometimes love means standing up for someone, even when they don't want you to. In the months that followed, life blossomed again. Caleb bought a small house on the edge of town with enough space for a garden. June often spent her afternoons there, rocking baby Ben on the porch, while Layla worked in the kitchen. The air was full of laughter, and the smell of something baking, a reminder that peace once shattered can still be rebuilt. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Caleb joined his mother on the porch. He handed her a cup of tea and said softly, "I used to think losing Tessa was the worst thing that ever happened to me. But now I see it was just the path that led me here." June smiled, brushing a strand of gray hair from her face. Sometimes God doesn't remove people to punish us. He removes them to protect us. They sat together in the fading light, the sound of crickets filling the silence. For June, this was what happiness truly meant. Not wealth, not perfection, but family honesty and the quiet comfort of knowing she'd done the right thing, no matter how hard it had been. Later that night, she took out her old journal and wrote a single line across the page. "The truth may hurt for a while, but lies destroy forever." It was her reminder that courage isn't just about facing others. It's about facing what you already know in your heart. And as she watched her son playing with his baby boy through the window, she whispered, "We made it through, Caleb. We really made it through. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the interruption, but we hope you will help us improve our content in the future." What about you, dear viewer? Have you ever had to speak a painful truth to protect someone you love? How did this story make you feel? Did it move you, surprise you, or remind you of someone in your life? If you felt touched by June and Caleb's journey, comment 100 below and tell us what country you're watching from. Don't forget to share this story so others can feel its message of truth, courage, and second chances.